Yeah, and if you look over here, that's a movie poster for a movie I did with Joel Osteen and Zig Ziglar and Darren Hardy. And as soon as those achievements happened, James, do you know what happened on the inside of me? What changed? Nothing. Did any of my anxiety go away? No. Did any of my fears go away? No. Did any of my negative self-talk go away? No. And so
Did you
after
say?
having
Did you say? That's it.
And now here is singer-songwriter, broadcaster, audio-video artist, entertainment agent, and your host. It's the master storyteller himself, James Kevin O'Connor.
Hey, everybody, guys and ladies, thank you for coming back to podcasting your global career. Really delighted with my guest today, but before I get into my guest today, I would like to just inspire you guys to please share this episode. I know there's someone out there who will find this content really, really valuable. And also, you're helping this show immensely by sharing it with somebody you know. Today, we're in the great state of California, and we're visiting with somebody. This is the most unusual and just a wonderful person. You're going to love this guy. His name is Evan Money, and he has been married 29 times. Yes, 29 times to the same woman, the same lovely Susan. And he lives life like no one else. He lives life on fire. He goes after anything he wants, gets whatever he wants, and he inspires so many people that he runs into, including me in this interview. So I feel like I've made a new friend, and we dive into some of the esoteric subjects that we love that most people don't even want to talk about. So he's an author, he's a speaker, he's a teacher, he's a leader. So you better strap up your seatbelts, because we're taking a ride today to the great state of California from the Music City to hang out with Evan Money.
I think we're better off having just a quality discussion versus
Yeah.
the typical answer this question and all that stuff. So we got to bring some of you into it. So
Well, that's what I like, to tell you the truth. I don't really work with too many scripted questions because the Holy Spirit seems to always take the lead on these things.
yes.
And you never know what's lurking around each corner, which is kind of the beauty of everything,
Yes.
But I did want to ask you, and by the way, folks, our guest is Evan Money today, and this is just such a treat for me because of, as we talked a little earlier about all the things you built, and you came from, not the silver spoon situation. You came from some hard knocks and some struggles, because I was really identifying, watching how, you came into what you're doing now, and very humble beginnings. Do you want to share a little bit of that, Evan, just for the ones out there who are maybe in that space right now?
Well, that's a great way that you position that, James. So first and foremost, to the people listening, Evan's story, yeah, you were down and out. Now look at you now. Look at all your hair, and you're so awesome. And James can, when you see the picture, you'll get the joke on that one.
Yeah.
What's really important for the people that are listening is understanding that by listening to this podcast, we can eliminate your pain and problems right here, right now. So the podcast is really about you listening. And too often I find that most podcasts are like mining gold, right? You got to get through a lot of stuff to try to squeeze something out. And even to the point where, and I will push back and challenge some people's limited mindsets. I have people that are like, oh yeah, hey, you got to listen to podcasts as many as you can at 2 and 3 times speed so you can get through them faster.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you know what? I don't want to get through anything. I want to get from. So there's no need to double speed this and do all this and blah, blah, blah. James and I are going to put on our scuba gear. We're going to have a deep dive discussion. We're going to stay deep under the water for a while. And if you want to get from, then you're in the right place. If you just want to get through and get to the next thing and continue on your life of pain and problems, then go ahead and click off this podcast and go pick up something else. But if you want to sit with us and go deep, we're right here. So I'm all ears. James, what you got?
Amen, brother. Amen. I love it. Yeah. So, just going back to when you started, and we don't have to go through, any details, but you've built a phenomenal business. And I know you've built a lot of this, Evan, with the help of the Lord and your connection with the Lord. And in that walk, like getting to where you are now, and again, you're living from, like you said, you live in the moment. But I'm very, very impressed with the fact that you put family and God before many things in your life. And I think that's the secret to a joyous life. Seeing that and seeing the love and, just the overwhelming happiness that you have with the things that you do. What inspired this, like, to get you to this place where you're living like this, like every day, every minute, it seems?
Well, I want to go back to what you talked about, James, off air, but before the recording starts. So tip for any of those that want to start doing a podcast, always hit record, beforehand, because the best stuff is the stuff. Oh, I don't want to put that out there and all that. But full disclosure, and we won't put James on the spot, but James was sharing with me a little bit about his story. And like, man, it just seemed like forever. And so like, man, what's taking so long? And so, James, your story is my story. So
okay.
I'm working on myself, because I like to tell people all the time, people are like, oh, you got it made, you live in this big fancy neighborhood and all this stuff. And I slow people down and say, look, the biggest room in my house is the room for improvement. That's number one.
Nice.
And so it doesn't end. And I think everyone kind of has that same story. I don't know anyone that has said, gosh, man, it just, it happened too quick. I wish it would just slow down. Right? So we're all in that. I think it's, I grew up in a very, in my early 20s in toxic bodybuilding. So I have what's called body dysmorphia, which means when I look in the mirror, I'm not able to see reality. My bride's like, oh, honey, you look so good. You're ripped, you're shredded. And I'm just like, no, I don't look like this guy over there. I think all of us on this podcast have what's called time dysmorphia, where we think like, oh man, it's taking so long. That's like, not really. That's what was necessary, to bring us along.
Yeah.
But with that, I want to go back to a great point that you made and help the people, because it's like, okay, there's a challenge, an epidemic that we have, James. A lot of people have, they're listening to this podcast, and it's static thinking. Our human nature, because there's two states you can be in. You can be in a state of living in your human nature, which is fear, doubt, worry, pain, and problems. That's human nature, right? Human nature. Right. You want to see human nature? Come drive with me in Los Angeles on the freeway. You'll see my human nature come out. And, some guy cuts me off and like, okay, reacting, not responding, right? Base human nature. So our base human nature clings to the static versus dynamic, right? Static. I want to stay the same. I don't want to change, because change, any type of change, looks like loss in the beginning. And as human beings, we have this giant fear of loss. So we cling to the static, right? I cling to the known. Known pain is always better than unknown blessings, because, I don't know. And you see this as you read the scriptures, James. You understand, like, you used to think, gosh, I thought Jesus was being callous when he asked these people, well, do you want to get healed?
Yeah.
Because they're so used to understanding that, wait, this known pain is going to go away. Like, am I ready for the unknown?
Yeah.
What's going to happen if I can see? What's going to happen if I can walk? I don't know. I'm going to have to go to work, and I don't know, right? All this stuff. So we cling to the static. So most people listen to podcasts in the static mindset of, okay, this guy was down and out. Now he's up. Everything's great. Good for him. How do I get there? Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's this arrival mindset.
Right.
Versus a dynamic divine nature mindset. Okay. So divine nature is the opposite of being in the grind. So I don't grind anything. I don't want to grind the gears of my car. I don't want to grind stuff. I'm in the flow. Right. Other people talk about, Eb, you're crushing it. I'm like, I don't want to crush anything or anybody. I want to soar. right? So I'm all about flowing and soaring and living in my divine nature where I'm responding instead of reacting. And it's really as simple as, James, like, okay, you're in this state all the time. Exactly, because I'm spiraling up versus spiraling down and just building on top of the next day and the next moment and saying, okay, how long can I stay in my divine nature today? Oh,
Right.
I find myself staying there a lot longer when I don't go drive on the freeway in Los Angeles. So, hey, let's work at home instead. Hey, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So it's not an arrival static. It's dynamic of like, hey, for example, people look at my bride and I's marriage. We're known around the world. We get remarried a different state or country every year, and that includes honeymoons. Woohoo!
Right.
So I have now been married 29 times. So I'm probably the first person you've ever interviewed that's been married 29 times. And so people say, oh, have you got this amazing marriage? It's so awesome. I want to come to your event to learn how to have a great marriage. And I tell people, I say, okay, yes, and I have this amazing dynamic marriage and this amazing family, but I could throw all of that away today with one poor decision.
Yes.
Or a few very poor decisions, right? Do you see how it's dynamic and it's not static?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Static keeps thinking like, oh, if I just get there, I'm good. I don't have to do anything more. You and I talked about our spiritual growth, right? It's dynamic. It's not static. You know, I laugh at people that, oh yeah, and I get it, but hey, I'm going to read the Bible in 1 year and get through it. And I'm like, for our talk about Bob Proctor, I'd rather spend that time reading one page and get from it.
Yes.
And get from it. And I realized that my spiritual growth is so dynamic that the more I know, the more I don't know.
Yeah.
And the more I want to dig and continue to grow and thrive and build. So that's I specialize in long answers to short questions, James, but I just wanted to get that foundation in there for the listener so they know kind of what's going on, because this mindset of, oh, if I just get to this thing and do these 5 points, then I'll be good. And it's like, no, it's a daily choice. It's an hourly choice. It's a minute by minute choice. One thing that just came up, James, my daughter and I'm the homeschool dad, so I'm working with her on her chemistry. And again, going to Bob Proctor, it's in her chemistry book. This is so cool. In her chemistry book, it talks about the vibrations of everything on a quantum physics level. Like, hey, this, whatever's, iron, steel, wood, anything man-made, everything has a frequency it's vibrating at.
Right.
And so we've had some challenges with, and I know no one else here listening can understand, with teenage daughters, some teenage attitude challenges. And so I'll tell her, I say, okay, what kind of vibrations are you putting out? Do you want to continue to put out those negative vibrations? Or I'll just say, hey, let's change those vibrations, because we don't want to be putting that out of, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, all of that, long way around the block, but that's a little bit so people can understand, right? It's a constant, it's a dynamic. So it's about, all right, how can I stay in these states versus this one and done static? If I can just get there, I'll be good mindset.
Well, I think one of the things that you have done is, which I think very few people do, is uncovered your purpose in life. And that ties, I think, to the static behavior, because it seems like if you have purpose, you can recognize the static and know what's more important. The noise, you can just say, I'm kind of done with that. I don't really need that. It's not really doing anything for my life. But the purpose is it's so important that most people, I think, if you walk down the street and ask, like 95% of the people would just immediately say, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer. I said, no, I didn't ask you that. I asked you, what is your purpose, not what you do. And people pay no attention to their purpose. They just figure, I'm a robot. Went to school for medicine, and that's all I think, do, and sleep and eat. It's like, but there's other things inside of you, And so what you just described was really valuable, in that the important things are not arriving. And you hit it on the head. Everyone thinks they're going to arrive at this place, and it's like, no, you might have hit a goal, but right away there's another ceiling and there's another floor, and you're probably not going to be happy just staying in that place. You're either going to go back down or you're going to go back up. We can't seem to just say, I'm good now. And I'll just wait. Where's the hearse?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not that simple.
Exactly. And I'll share this with you because you hit on something. So I'm looking, we're on the Zoom call, right? And so I'm trying to focus on you, but of course my mind is directed towards my screen and what the viewers are seeing. But if you look at the back of me over here where I'm pointing,
13.
that's my doctorate degree. Woohoo!
Okay, your PhD,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and if you look over here, that's a movie poster for a movie I did with Joel Osteen and Zig Ziglar and Darren Hardy. And as soon as those achievements happened, James, do you know what happened on the inside of me? What changed? Nothing. Did any of my anxiety go away? No. Did any of my fears go away? No. Did any of my negative self-talk go away? No. And so
did you say, that's it?
Well, no, I'm like, wait a minute. Right again, because I was in the static, like somehow the outside can change the inside.
Yeah.
And so it's just understanding in the dynamic, day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, I choose to say, am I going to listen to myself, which is never anything good, or am I going to talk to myself instead?
Yeah.
Am I going to listen to myself or am I going to talk to myself? And I'm working this out with my daughter. Again, teenage, she's 16, got we homeschool and she has her different co-ops. And so she goes outside and lives life, but,
right.
Normal teenage stuff. And just helping her understand, I was like, honey, you're awesome and amazing, but you're not special with your anxieties. Like these anxieties that you're having are not just you, right? It's everyone that you talk to. Everyone you're talking to is more anxious than you are. So, it's understanding, like you don't have a patent on this, right? And one fun story I heard from Isaiah Thomas. He's a old school, 80s and 90s basketball player. He played with Magic Johnson and all that.
Right.
And he was, one of these legends, got in that Michael Jordan era. And they were at the 75th, the top 75 players of all time, right? For the 75th year of the NBA. So, Kareem and, Magic, and they had all the new players like Dwayne Wade, and they had, of course, LeBron. And so you have these mix of eras, right? You got old school, you got middle school, right? Like 80s, 90s, right? Then you got the players of today. And so Isaiah Thomas is with Dwayne Wade, and he's with Dwayne Wade, and they're talking, they're doing stuff. And then Isaiah Thomas is talking to Kareem. Okay. And he's like deer in the headlights. Oh my gosh, I'm talking to Kareem, right?
Man,
so he has this interaction, and he turns to Dwayne Wade. He goes, oh my gosh, that was Kareem. Oh man, I'm freaking out right now because like Kareem was talking to me as a peer. Like, this is so amazing. And Dwayne Wade elbows him and he goes, well, now you know what it's like for me talking to you. And I'm just like, that is so us, right?
Yeah.
Like we get so wrapped up in our stuff, not realizing that, man, that everybody's the same as us.
Yeah.
And so just understanding, like you talked about, it's like, hey, I can either choose to, the term, right? Oh, I'm over it now. Well, you're never over it. You're either living above it, or you're in your base human nature of fear, doubt, guilt, shame, and woe is me, and it's taking so long, and blah, 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 right? There's no static. It's one of those. So we're all down here every once in a while, but to your point, as you started the show, I realized the faster I can get out of there and get back to my divine nature, the more joyful, the more blissful everything becomes. So it's about what tools can I use at different times to keep me in that divine nature. So, when the tools that I'm on the freeway, right? When I'm reacting on the freeway, it's a little too late to grab the tool. It's like, oh man, okay, but let me get back, right? So again, so there are some other tools, but it's all, for me, I like to focus on what I call, and I learned this from Tom Brady, but what I like to call prehab versus rehab.
Okay.
So most people in a static mindset, right? They have a fight with their wife, or they're having all these issues, and they go, well, okay, now let's go to counseling. Well, instead of doing that, what if you said, hey, before the injury happens, instead of, hey, I'm going to play football, get hurt, go get surgery, do rehab. Well, what if I did prehab? So I wouldn't get injured. And so I wouldn't have to have surgery, right?
Yeah.
So for my bride and I was like, hey, what could we do So we don't end up having fights, being angry at each other, having all this stuff, and then, finally go to counseling, right? What if we, on the front end, we figured things out? So instead of, hey, I'm mad at you for a week, that we can compress that down to 5 minutes, and then it's 5 seconds. And then it's like, hey, I'm not even going to react to that.
Yeah.
Because, hey, that's not going to get me what I want. So it's just about how fast can we get out of that state into this state, and using whatever tools and whatever abilities we can. And the biggest tool I realized was, hey, prehab is way better than rehab.
If you're in front of your computer right now, log in to evanmoney.com and be prepared to be impressed. Also, check the show notes for all the ways to connect with Evan. Let's get right back to the interview with Evan Money. Yeah, and you're too busy planning weddings to even get upset with each other. That keeps everybody happy,
Yeah, not busy, because that's a cuss word for me, but intentional.
Intentional. Okay. It's funny you read my mind about the tools, because I was just about to ask you, is there any specific tools that you use for yourself to keep you self-aware? Because that's one I feel like it's a backslide. It's really difficult to not get wrapped up. Busy work or frustration or something going wrong or computers breaking or whatever. It's just life in general. But it's really, I try to teach people about the power of self-observation and watch how you react to things. But sometimes it's easy to take your eye off the ball. And, you're multifaceted, you're multitasking, your multi-personalities coming at you. Is there anything that you use that is very helpful to you to keep your mindset to do all the things you just described?
Oh, absolutely. So when you say which tools, it's all of them.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, so for the listener, like, all right, give me something to grab onto. So I'll talk about a quick and easy, like, boom, in the moment. But before you get there, again, I want to really ground this prehab mentality, right? Because you said it, right? Once you react, it's too late. So if you look at really going from, okay, my life is either a mess, my life is okay, hey, my life is good, to like, hey, I want to get to greatness, right? So greatness starts with the prehab mindset. So, okay, how can I set things up and create these guardrails so I can choose keyword responsibility, which if you break down responsibility, it's the ability to respond versus react. So I like to tell on myself, because my biggest area in growth is traffic, right? And getting around this stuff and So it's like, okay, how do I create these guardrails so I'm constantly responding before I get to a reactionary mode? And one tool that works for me, and I've been using this one a lot lately, it's an instant grounder. I read a great book by Bo Eason, and I was able to it's fascinating. I love reading books from non-faith-based people that quote scripture and talk about faith in their books, because they're like, I can't deny this truth, so I got to put this quote in here. I got to put this thing. So and again, I'm not aligned with some of the things he talks about, but I was like, okay, what can I get from this book, and how can I put it into my world, and how to shift this? And one of the big things, his thing is about, I translate it into greatness, right? How do we get to greatness? And so there was a health challenge that my bride had, and I was with her, and I'm in a reactionary state because we're kind of knocked out of balance. Like, we're like the super healthy, super organic, clean eaters, all of this stuff. The last time I was in an ER was 20 years ago when my son was born. So my bride had to have emergency C-section. So we ended up finding ourselves in the ER, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like just walking in, right? The room is just poorly lit. They have 2 TVs with the news on. We walk in, not feeling great. They're talking about all the rapes and murders. And I'm just like, oh my, like, get me out of here. So I had to calm down, ask the security guard to turn the TV off, and like put all the stuff in. But I found myself sitting there. Every fiber of me, James, wanted to just pick my bride up and bolt and like, let's go home. Let's get out of here. But her body needed what only Western medicine could provide in a trauma state. Like some people are like, well, are you Western medicine or Eastern medicine? Well, I tell you what, if I get hit by a bus and my arm is shattered, you know what? Herbs are only going to do so much, right? Like we got to put the bones back together, right? Let's use some Western medicine know-how, put everything back together, and we'll put the herbs on top, right? It can be a yes and. So we're in this moment, and I had this clarity moment, James, of grounding. I said, because if you want a better life, you simply need to ask better questions. So why me is not an empowering question. That's not going to help me, right? That's going to keep me in this base state. So I asked a better question. I said, what would the world's greatest husband do in this situation? And that instantly grounded me. That instantly got rid of the distractions, got rid of why me. And I was like, okay, well, what would the greatest husband in the world do? Okay, he would advocate for his bride. He would let her lay and sleep on her shoulder. He would fill out the forms for her. He would do all the stuff. And so basically about every 10 to 15 minutes, I had to ask myself that question. What would the world's greatest husband do? Yelling at the nurse is not helping.
Yeah.
Right? But engaging and saying, hey, how can we position this over here? What can we do over here? Getting upset and getting, time frame, right? Like, where are they? They're taking too long, right? That's not helping. So the question I kept asking, this tool can be used all kinds of stuff. But for me, it was, what would the world's greatest husband do in this situation? And so instantly yelling at the nurse is not an option. Instantly getting frustrated is not an option. It's like, oh, okay. And then in some business situations, like you talked about, right? Like if you're in business, for all those entrepreneurs that are listening, if you're in business, my daughter, again, I have a son and a daughter. My son's 19 and, he's moved out, had an adventure East Coast and has come back. But again, I'm talking about my daughter because she's still here, right? And we're still responsible. Right. So
nice.
She's really into horses, and I knew nothing about horses. Blessedly, we live in a very prolific horse community, so there's these stables everywhere.
Right.
But as I'm learning about horses, James, I discovered that, and we've been to high-end stables, low-end stables, country stables, private stables. I've been to all kinds of stables, right? And I noticed that the only stable that's ever clean is the one that doesn't have a horse in it. And so people that are entrepreneurs are like, oh man, if I can just get past this issue, I can get just past static thinking, right? If I can just get past this. It's like, if you're an entrepreneur, you need, you get to learn to love the horse.
Right.
Because it's always there. And so it's a matter of like, okay, this is just part of it. So, hey, it's raining. Now I got wet runny horse poop. Okay, we're just going to need a different shovel. All right, let's go over here. I'm on a board for a dynamic, groundbreaking private equity firm that is like groundbreaking, doing some really cool stuff. And sit down with the CEO. He has us on the board, and he's really good about asking the board for help. And, he's just constantly like, okay, once we get past this and once we get past this, and I always remind him like, yeah, and then next month, there'll be more horse poop. And it's like learning to love that, learning to love the process. And you see that a little bit with Tom Brady and like, okay, how long is he going to play and how much time? And he learns to love practice, learns to love all of these things. And so understanding that from the mindset, that's the tool, right? Of like, hey, if I'm not willing to learn to love horse poop, it's time to get out of horses. Okay. Right. So if I'm complaining about this entrepreneur thing, right, then it's like, okay, well, that's not going to work because that's just going to bring you pain and problems. Or this, the entrepreneurs that go like, man, I sure miss having a paycheck. I wish I was back over there. And then they go back to the job and go, man, I hate this. I want to be free again. I want to be an entrepreneur, right? And they right? It doesn't matter, right? It's different kind of horse poop, same poop, right? So So the mindset is like learning to love the process and then grounding yourself into that with better questions. So what would the world's greatest entrepreneur do in this situation? Yeah. What would the person who loves their life and loves their business do in this situation? He probably wouldn't yell at the client who's, wants a little extra or had a miscommunication. He's probably not going to yell at the girl in the Philippines is on the customer support line just trying to do her job.
Right.
Right? Like, my kids still laugh at me. They can tell when I'm talking international and I'm just like frustrated. I'm like, okay, I just want my problem fixed. And so
it's amazing that you're bringing this up, because these are valuable tools. And I've shared with people about the blood test one time. I said, I just went in for a regular checkup, and it was, fast, in and out, people just zooming in and out, and you just sit down. And the woman who was doing it was so, just so programmed. She didn't even look up. She just named, and I stopped and I said, "What's your name?" And she turned and looked at me and said, "My name's Janine." And she just gave me the biggest smile. And, I always say, it wasn't that I asked, it was no one else asked, because that elicited that reaction. Because, we treat each other like we're just dumb animals sometimes. And just like, that's a person there, sitting there, and she's taking care of you. You can at least, make it palatable for the few minutes that you're sitting in the chair,
Yeah. But real quick, you said something that's so key. We do that to others. We also do it to ourselves.
Yes,
we treat ourselves like a dumb animal. It's like, wait a minute, I'm a person.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, unfortunately, I have 3 minutes and 9 seconds left in this interview, because my card got hacked. So it looks like Zoom is looking for their upgrade, which I'm already signed up for, and I bet they don't have the new credit card. So if it clicks us off, it's not us that's leaving.
We can go to part 2. That's all right.
I would love that. I feel like we could jam for a long time. And
I love how you blame it on Zoom. It's really like, well, Evan keeps talking too much. So
no, I love this. Is an easy interview for me, man. I just interject once in a while. I will share one thing I did have to be quite candid and honest is I had a situation with road rage on that. Somebody was on my tail, and they drive like maniacs outside of Nashville. And they came up, and they were just so aggressive. And I pulled out to go past this guy and get in front of him, and I cut somebody else off. And I shared this on one of my podcasts. I go, yeah, here's your Christian chaplain, all about peace and love. And look at him. He's like a nut on the road, So we can all become victims of our own surroundings. So that's why I wanted to dig a little bit about tools on how to help all of us collectively in getting through this life with as much grace and forgiveness and kindness as possible. So the tools are so appreciated, Evan, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the one tool that I use in traffic a lot of times, it's helped me now at this stage. Again, once I get reaction mode, right, then I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? One thing that's really helpful for me is I'll ask myself, well, where's this coming from?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I'm not worried about the guy that cut me off. I'm not worried about, I'm like, yeah, where is this coming?
Yeah.
Yeah, what? And then I can follow the root, right? You've heard, chaplain terms, right? You can deal with the fruit all day long, but once you get to the root, we're going to be back in this situation.
Yeah, because it's never about the person. I said, how can I get angry? I don't even know this person.
Yeah.
It's this is silly for me to have anger towards a steel vehicle with somebody in there. I can't even see them, and I'm getting all emotionally attached to them, and like, I'm doing this with this person. So a lot to learn for all of us constantly. How to control our behavior, and it's always our reaction. It's never the event; it's the way we react to the event.
Yes.
So, brother, this has been fabulous. I don't know what else to say other than, I really admire your spirit more than anything, the way you've done things with your life. And it's just such a joy to talk to you. And I feel the vibe and the energy. And I feel so fortunate that we had a chance to connect like this. So I hope we can do this again for sure.
Woo-hoo!
Hey everybody, thanks once again for being here on Podcasting Your Global Career. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please check out the show notes to support the people we put on this show. Also, if you're digging the show, forward it to a friend. And you can also subscribe to us in the Apple Podcasts. We would appreciate it. I'm your host, James Kevin O'Connor. So until the next time when we meet again, I'll either see you on the socials or I'll see you from a stage.
Ride on, baby, won't you take a ride with me? Ride on, we can untangle all the mystery. If wishes were windows, I'd open one and find that freedom is really a simple state of mind. So ride on, baby, won't you take a ride with me? Ride on, we can untangle all the mystery. Ride on, baby, you and I can find the key. Ride on, we can unlock each other's destiny. I taste the breeze of freedom, it's tingling on my tongue. You and I out on the road will stay each other's destiny. I'll take you places that you've never seen. I'll take you places that you never dreamed. I'll take you places that were pictures in your mind. I'll take you places beyond the reach of time. Ride on, baby, won't you take a ride with me? Ride on, we can untangle all the mystery. Ride on, baby, you and I can find the key. Ride on, we can unlock each other's destiny. So won't you take a ride with me? Take a ride with me. Want you to take